The first one, we look at rainwater harvesting. There's a myth, and I've heard many people telling me it's no use harvesting rainwater because it's not enough. Now, by a show of hands, I want to ask two questions quickly. Who in this room has either backup power or solar power at their houses or at their businesses? Okay. How many of you run completely off-grid that you don't use any ESCOM, you only use your alternative energy? Only 2, 3. Now, that speaks volumes. Because on the one end, we expect of rainwater to take us off-grid, to take care of our total need, and if it doesn't, we're not interested. But when we do solar power, most people will use that to save money, to reduce the load on ESCOM, and to have power when there's load shedding. But you still have an ESCOM connection. Rainwater is exactly the same. It's not there to take care of all your needs all year round. But whenever it rains, you harvest some water, you reduce your intake of fresh water from the municipality, and you allow the municipal systems to recover. So the municipal systems become your ESCOM. They then have capacity when your tanks are empty. And just looking at volumes that we can harvest. 1 square meter, that's about the size of this. 1 square meter, 1 millimeter of rain gives you 1 liter of water. If you look at it different, and you have a property with a 200 square meter roof, you can harvest 2,000 liters of water with only 10 millimeters of rain. Now, I did a calculation for a site in Limpopo not too long ago. They get 600 millimeters per year. Now, if you take your 600 millimeters per year and you have a 200 square meter roof, do you see how much water you can actually capture? You may not be able to store all of that, but even if you can store 50% of that, it speaks to water security and it speaks to you saving money because that's free water. So, if we say rainwater harvesting is not worth it, think again. If you need bigger tanks, Chris is sitting in the back there, they do megaliter tanks, so that's also not a problem. You can store water. The other side of it is parking lots, hard landscaping, hard surfaces. Now, I don't want to drink water coming off a parking lot because often it's contaminated with oil and tire waste and whatever else. But you can use it for non-drinking purposes. How many square meters, now let me rather say how many hectares of parking lot do we have in Gauteng? And all of that water runs off into our rivers and into our dams. Then we say we have a water shortage. Now, I've been very vocal about this, both in City of Cape Town and Nelson Mandela Bay's drought situations. You know, in Cape Town, during the 2018 drought and day zero that everybody in Gauteng and worldwide knew about, City of Cape Town was still dumping 450 million litres of treated effluent into the sea on a daily basis. Nelson Mandela Bay was still dumping 250 million litres of treated effluent into the sea on a daily basis. Then we say we have a water shortage. We don't have a water shortage. We have a water management problem. Cape Town is now about to spend 5 billion rand on desalinating seawater, which will give them 50 to 70 million litres a day. 5 kilometers upstream, they dump 60 to 80 million litres a day of treated effluent into the sea. But we say we have a water shortage. We need to think a little bit different. What can our parking areas do for us in terms of non-drinking water? If you look at flash floods, yes, our rain patterns do change. It's been changing for the last couple of thousand years. But flash floods are also man-created because when we have natural earth, like we have around the country club here, and it rains, the soil absorbs a lot of water before you get runoff. With roofs, parking lots, and roads, every drop that falls runs off. So there's no absorption happening, and we create artificial flash floods, and then we wonder why we have them. It's flash floods by design. It's as simple as that. Now, when we harvest rainwater, very important, we now first fill our tanks before we get runoff, before we get overflows. And you're going to say to me, yeah, really, I've got a 5,000 litre tank at home, you think that's going to make a difference to the flood? No, it's not. But 5,000 litre tanks is 5 million litres. Now it starts making a difference. Now we start reducing our flash floods. So you see how this is all interconnected at the end of the day. And how what we do on site can have a huge positive impact downstream. What we just need to keep in mind with rainwater, it tends to be acidic, and you need to adjust your pH before you take it into the property. Brendan will tell you what happens to your copper pipes if you put acidic water through there. How many years before you start replacing them?
It's going to be a while, for 5 years.
5 years average. Then you'll start seeing water leaks coming through because you're putting acidic water through your copper pipes. Very important is that you do pH adjusting if you do take rainwater indoors. There's a few, this is not the only ones, but just a few things to keep your tanks clear. I spoke to somebody on Monday about this. And he said, you won't believe the amount of debris I'm getting from my gutters. I said, yes, that's why you need a pre-filter before you go into your tanks. Otherwise, you collect all of that debris into your tanks and you pump that. It shortens the lifespan of your pumps. If it's organic, it may cause problems with pollution. And it put a lot of strain on your filters. So there's your leaf catcher. There's also first flush that's not on here. There's these screens. That is a photo that I took in Cape Town. You can see that wedge wire screen catching even algae coming off a tile roof. You've got your top of tank filters. You've got your vortex filters. These are very, very nice, especially for commercial buildings. With a vortex filter, you lose 10% of your water because it uses 10% to flush out the filter. But you never have to go and manually clean it. So from a maintenance point of view, it makes a lot of sense. When you do backup systems, Gerry touched on that, people spending money on backup systems. You've got those 10 tanks standing there and they're all empty now. So what now? Now you have a backup system, and then you want to do a rainwater system, and then you want to do a borehole, and your borehole is dry or so contaminated you can't use it, and then you eventually, how do you manage all those systems? And we've got a very simple way of doing that. One of them is for your backup systems is oversize your tank. In other words, if you need 10,000 litre backup, put 20 or 30 or 40,000 litre tanks up there. If you need 1 million litre backup, put 2 or 3 million litre tanks up there. And your backup, you will set to a specific level, so your municipal water will always fill up to that point. Whenever it rains, your rainwater will fill up the rest of the tank. And when your rainwater fills the rest of the tank and you start using water from the tank, you first use your free water. Now, City of Joburg, for commercial properties, charge about 64 Rand per kilolitre for water, and they charge another 34 Rand for sewage. Your sewage is connected to your water intake. So you're paying 98 Rand per kilolitre plus VAT. You're saving 98 Rand per kilolitre a year. But again, when you use this water, you allow the network to recover because you're not using network water. So when you're getting down to this level, there is water in the network. At the same time, another benefit is, let's say you've used your rainwater and your network is off, and you get a bit of rain, it will immediately top up this tank and you have water again. So it's a win-win-win all the way. You have one system, one pump, one filtration system, and it gives you a lot of peace of mind, and it saves you a huge amount of money. That's the lekker thing. Whatever you do here from an intervention point of view saves you money. Whatever you spend on central systems costs you money, because at some point it's financed and somebody need to pay the taxes for that. So this is a very simple way of optimizing your rainwater system and backup system, joining it together on site. This is just a quick diagram. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We have your water tank, you have your VSD control pump, your filtration, sterilizing, pH correction, and you go into the building. Now in this case, we're not filling a tank. This is a direct municipal supply. We have a direct municipal supply into the building. And if you set the pressure on this one higher, then that will be primary and this one will be your backup. If you set your pressure higher on this one, that will be your primary and that will be your backup if your tanks are empty or if the pump fails or whatever. So here you can still use this to fill up tanks as well. But here you have the best of both worlds. Because now, if the power drops, you have your municipal water pushing through. If your pump fails, you have your municipal water pushing through. You never need to go out and close this tap and open that tap. And whoever you want to get up 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter to go and change taps outside. This is a full automatic system. As I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the design of it, just know that it's a way you can have it hassle-free, like you have your electricity and your inverter that kicks in the minute that Eskom drops. You can have the same in water. You can have your automatic backup system, a no-hassle system. Very important here is backflow preventer that is not a non-return valve. A backflow preventer is designed to guarantee that your water doesn't push back into the municipal pipeline. And I was in a meeting in Cape Town where one of the developers said, listen, we've got a grey water system, but that's completely separate. And we have a municipal dedicated line. We want the city to exempt us from having to install a backflow preventer. Now, it's a multi-million rand development. That backflow preventer cost a few thousand. And I said to the developer, well, the city was hard, took a hard stance and they said, we tell you you'll do it and you will do it. I said, listen, son, what you need to understand is, if the municipal pipeline becomes contaminated at some point, you can stand up and say, it's not mine, I have a backflow preventer in place. If you don't have a backflow preventer, somewhere in future, a plumber may interconnect between your grey water system and your drinking water system without knowing. And you can have contamination. So that's something that's, for me, not even debatable. It's something that we definitely need to install. Now, if that system is set up properly, it will make primary use of your rainwater, or as I said, you can change it around depending on where you set the pressure higher. It will use municipal water direct from the municipal supply when your rainwater is depleted or if there's a problem with your pump. And the backup municipal water in the tank will only be used in real case of emergency when there's nothing else. So it's a full automatic system, no human intervention required. It's maximum saving of municipal water because you're using rainwater, giving the municipal system chance to recover. And the more alternative water we use, the better chance the system has to recover. Which means there should be water in the system when we need it. This is a practical. Brendan, you're not allowed to laugh, okay? This was a retrofit. The original municipal supply came under the floor there. This is from the rainwater tanks. The washing machine is this side and the toilet supply is going that way. So the issue backflow preventer, you can see it's significantly bigger than a non-return valve. There is a pressure reducing valve. So what happens is the pressure from the tanks is set higher, so the tanks will always be first priority. And if the tanks cut out, because the tanks are empty, automatically municipal water will push through to the toilets, but also back down this pipe to feed the washing machine. Very simple installation, was done by OPSA approved installer, so don't have to worry about that. In this case, you can see that tap is closed, so the tank supply is now cut off to the toilets. There was some maintenance done at that point. But this is a very, very easy way of doing it. And you have a hassle-free system for the rest of your life. So my message here is, it doesn't have to be a problematic system. It doesn't have to, I've got to remember to do this, and when it rains, I must go, nobody's going to do that. So just looking at 3 case studies. The first one is, the first 2 are single residentials, and the third one looking at commercial building. Here the customer installed that wire mesh screen that I showed you. It was the most practical for this application. You can see that cover can open there so you can clean the screen. And then you have the downpipe. You made a few changes to his gutters. The downpipe will feed into an underground tank. He actually split his pool into 2 halves. And the one half you made a rainwater collection tank with fake grass on there. And then the pool with the sliding deck obviously reducing evaporation. And that's his backup water system there. So it looks very neat, it's practical, it's simple to operate. And even if you look at the pressure pump, we've got the city pump, submersible booster pump in there. And you can't even see that once you put that patch of grass on there, you can't even see it. Beautiful backup system that they built there. The second one was a bit more difficult because there's a downpipe going to the street. There are 3 downpipes here also running to the street at the back. So all that water is wasted from sight. Now in Cape Town at one point there was a bylaw that told you must take your rainwater to the street. You were not allowed to capture it many years back. So to get this for rainwater harvesting, you can see this is a double story here, that's single story there, this is a flat roof dropping this way, this gutter is going that way. How on earth are you going to manage rainwater harvesting there? It becomes almost impossible. Agree? Okay, the solution was a roof over here, which had to happen anyway, but then a roof at the back here, which made a big difference. So the gutter from this roof could drop back onto that one. This downpipe could drop onto that one. Because it's double story, that downpipe could be diverted over the notch here onto that one. This one drops back automatically, and the angle of this gutter was changed to drop to the back and not to the front. The only water we couldn't capture in the central system was from that part of the roof. If we had to do that, we wouldn't need a pump to pump it through. So if we look at it from a practical point of view, there you can see the double story pipe diverted. This was the part we couldn't capture, so that goes into a 1,000-litre tank that is used for car washing, filling a water feature and stuff like that. And then at the back, you see that pipe coming in, you see that pipe coming in, the one on the left where the angle is changed, and everything dropping onto this roof. And from that roof, you've got a 110 pipe down to the water tanks. Small investment, but without pumping, you catch all of your rainwater. In this case, it's about 250 square meters of roof. So with 30 millimeters of rain, you harvest 7,500 litres. Can you do a 7,500 litres every time it rains? Makes a difference, eh? You now think rainwater harvesting makes sense? You think it's worth it? I think half of my audience is asleep. Okay, then the sun house went a bit further installed a grey water system that catch everything from the bathrooms and the washing machine, except for the toilets. And that grey water is going into the garden for irrigation purposes. So now you have free rainwater coming down, which you harvest. You use it in the house, you discharge it as grey water, you harvest that again and use it for irrigating your garden. So you have a double win of the same water. If you look at the commercial building, all of this water was running away. These roofs didn't have gutters, and you look at all that hard landscaping there. So what they could do is install gutters here, divert that down to a central point. There are gutters, the downpipes are just discharging into the garden. Reroute those downpipes, and that can be your drinking water. All the runoff from your parking lot can be harvested there, goes to your irrigation tanks, and you use that to keep your garden alive. A garden that's looking good adds value to your property. I used to have an irrigation business in the 90s when automatic irrigation systems sort of started becoming fashion. People would often ask me, if I remember it was many years back, if I spend 15,000 Rand on an automatic irrigation system, can I add 15,000 Rand to the price of the house when I sell it? And I said, no. Nobody will spend 15,000 or pay 15,000 Rand for a second-hand irrigation system. But because your garden receives the right amount of water at the right time and your garden is looking beautiful, you can add 30,000 Rand to the price of your house. And this is exactly what you can do in cases like this as well. Permeable paving, that's something that I think is way underutilized in South Africa at the moment. It significantly reduces flash floods because you don't have runoff of the parking, you actually capture it right there. I've seen a number of people taking photos, you're welcome to do so, but also we have at the back there by Annalene, you can write down your name and make a copy of the slideshow, we can send it to you as well. So now you can harvest all of that water without creating the storm. Harvest it underground, pump it above ground storage, doesn't matter, and you can use that. Now, as I said, rainwater may not be enough, but it can be supplemented by use of grey water or on-site treated wastewater. Very important, if you use alternative water, grey water or wastewater recycling, to flush your toilets, to irrigate your garden, it means you put less pressure on your rainwater system. So the rainwater in your tanks will also last longer. Why do you want to use rainwater to flush your toilets and then you need to go and buy water to drink? Use alternative water to flush your toilets and you will have rainwater in your tanks for longer. Yet another way of saving.